The New York Jets are set to kick off rookie minicamp this morning, May 9th, and it'll run the next 3 days as we get to see the first look at the 2025 class in the green and white. So I just wanted to come on and talk about a few expectations for some of the draft picks, not many UDFAs, but of the 7 drafted players, what I think we should expect from them heading into the summer. With the top guys, Armand Membu and Mason Taylor, I don't really want to spend a ton of time. I feel like there's been so much oversaturation of analysis on these guys that pretty much the expectation for me is, can you both come in at your respective positions at right tackle and tight end and show that you're the best in the room? Like that's really all it comes down to for me. At the very minimum, you're competing and you're going to win the job in August, or you're projected to win the job in August with whoever you're competing with. I don't think Armand Membu is worse than Chuks Okorafor, and I do not think that Mason Taylor is worse than either Jeremy Ruckert or Stone Smart. So for me, those guys need to come in and prove that they're the number one guy at their position in the room. Then after that, it gets a little bit more in the weeds. Obviously, you have Azareye'h Thomas, the 73rd pick overall. He currently doesn't have a starting spot because Brandon Stevens is occupying the cornerback 2 role opposite Sauce. I've been saying numerous times since he's been drafted, I don't think AZ Thomas lasts on the bench much longer than halfway through the season. And I think you're really going to have to get creative on how you use these defensive backs in Aaron Glenn's defense. And that's not a bad thing. So for AZ, I want him to come in and compete. I don't know how quickly he's going to earn the starting job. My penciled benchmark is kind of week 8, week 10 maybe. So if he can come in midway through the season and be a starter, that's obviously great ROI for a third-round pick. It leaves you questioning, what do you do with your new $12 million player in Brandon Stevens? Is he going to go back to safety? That's possibly a scenario. So AZ Thomas, my expectation is that sooner rather than later, you're going to have to put him on the field because he's just going to be outperforming the guys in the room outside of obviously Sauce Gardner. Arian Smith, this is the one that everybody is all over, probably the most hated draft pick in the entire class, not just Jets, but the entire NFL. And I'm not quite understanding of it. Yes, I get the metric is bad. 10 drops is a terrible number for the wide receiver position. I did a film breakdown. I felt like I watched enough sample size of him to think that with enough coaching and just maybe a better recalibration of focus, this guy's not going to be the 4 drops a game like Alan Lazard was, where he's just such a crutch on your, he's such a terrible like letdown on your offense where you can't win games because of him. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Obviously, the room as a totality at the wide receiver position is not great outside of Garrett Wilson. And many people have said, well, they're just going to double and even triple team Garrett Wilson, which I think is hilarious. And if that's the case, Arian Smith is going to be wide open 40 yards down the field, and I'm pretty sure he can catch the wide open ones. So at worst, Arian Smith to me is going to come in and compete with Malachi Corley, their third-round pick last year, who they traded up for no matter what. I mean, I'm a very big Malachi Corley fan, so I'm interested to see how that battle plays out. But I think obviously you have Garrett, probably Reynolds is the 2. Lazard, if he sticks around, might be your 2B or your 3. And then you have Smith and Corley jockeying for the wide receiver 4. And I don't even know if I want to use the wide receiver 4 label, because I feel like it's going to be who's going to be the gadget type. And they're different gadgets. Corley is the short to intermediate gadget who's going to give you more juice after the catch, more physicality after the catch. Whereas Arian Smith is your gadget who's going to be take the top off and double moves and big posts and goes and opening stuff up underneath for Garrett Wilson and Mason Taylor. So different gadgets, but I feel like they're kind of jockeying for that gadget role in the offense. So I want to see Arian Smith come in and compete with Corley and just put his head down and grind. The next pick, I really don't think we're going to have a problem with overall. Maybe at first it's going to be a slow start for him. I know he has a groin injury that he's recovering from, but Malachi Moore, I think he's another player who's just going to see the field sooner rather than later, even be a full-time starter by 2026 opposite Andre Cisco. I loved what I saw on film. He's super versatile. He can come down in the box. He can play single high, split safety. He can give you slot work. So there's just too much of he does enough stuff well for me to say that he's going to sit on the bench for that long as well. So him and AZ, it's going to be a race to see who can get on the field first, and sooner rather than later with these guys. So I've already talked about 5 prospects, and I see a scenario where 4 of these guys are starters by 2026. So anybody saying that this is a bad draft class, I get it. We didn't draft a DT. We didn't get the wide receiver you like. We didn't get Shadur Sanders or the backup quarterback who's probably going to flame out anyway. But like I just talked about 5 prospects, and we have 4 potential starters by next year. So if year 2 of Aaron Glenn shows 4 starters in his first draft class, I think that's a win. Then we get down to the bottom 2 guys, the Miami linebacker, Kiki Maunoa. To me, he's just a kind of different scheme than the 2 linebackers we already have, Jamian Sherwood and Quincy Williams. He can kind of do a lot of things. I saw him rush the passer pretty well from even the B and C gaps. He can come off the edge, not like an edge rusher, but he's not just a straight up the A gap blitzer as a linebacker. Decent in coverage. I didn't really love what I saw there. I mean, he's going to be a developmental player. To me, if he's Chris Banjo's best friend, I think that's a fine, solid ROI for his first year. Obviously, there's players out there who are going to produce more in year 1, and we're going to say, damn, we should have took him over Maui Noah. But if you got a solid special teams guy who can come in and be your 3rd linebacker potentially in year 1, I think that's a good return on investment there. Tyler Barron, the edge rusher from Miami, I didn't really love his film. I think he needs to be set out on the edge, like a 5 technique or a wide 9 technique exclusively. I don't think he can play inside much, and it didn't look like he had a lot of success against guards. There was one rep where he was standing up in the Micah Parsons role where he's standing up over the center, and he had a good step and swim move over the center and forced a pressure, but I don't think this is a guy who's going to primarily win inside. So you're going to have to be, an outside exclusive guy. So to me, can you compete with Michael Clemens? I've been, pushing the narrative that Michael Clemens shouldn't be on the field more than, a very, very minimal role, 15% of the snaps or less. So I think Barron can come in and occupy that role almost out the gates. Obviously, I think he needs to get a little bit more strength in his lower half if he's going to be a run setting, first and second down edge player. And not to say Michael Clemens is good at that. We've seen Michael Clemens produce or not produce in those roles and be very poor in those roles. So there's definitely a path for Barron to get on the field. I guess I'll throw out a couple UDFAs quick. I would just kind of key in on Donovan Edwards, the running back from Michigan. He's just had, such a good college career that it'd be hard to, look away from him when it comes to cut down day. Maybe he can sneak on over in Wangu. Quentin Skinner, who I did a film breakdown of on the channel, and I had, pretty good thoughts about him. I think he can be a special player in the offense. Not saying he's going to be like some crazy big role player, but if he can stick on as your wide receiver 5 or 6 on the back end and give you special teams work too, because he just has length and he can stretch the field, perhaps that's a role for Skinner. Fatorma Moba, I feel like he's just the Twitter darling right now at UDFA, and I think he's got a lot of steam and just good vibes around him from the fan base. So he's obviously going to be another one to watch. And then one of Jordan or Dean Clark, the safeties that they signed, I think one of those guys is going to make it just because the room isn't that great. I'm not sure how they feel about Tony Adams. He obviously signed a tender that I think was worth around $3 million. So we'll see how they feel about Tony Adams once we get into camp and if any of these younger guys can stick on. Just my quick expectations and thoughts on the rookie class as we head into minicamp. That's going to be May 9th, 10th, and 11th. And then they come back for full veteran minicamp on May 20th. So things are going to be moving pretty quickly as we get through the summer portions. I appreciate everybody tuning in and sticking with us. Glenn just did a video with Emery Hunt from CBS Sports, so a great interview there on the channel as well. Make sure you check it out. Follow us on all social media platforms at Jet Nation. Follow me at Tereman directly on Twitter and Instagram, and follow Glenn at JNRadio_Glenn. And until next time, let's go Jets.